What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So, in this video, we are going to be talking about Trump's big, beautiful ballroom. I have mentioned it in the past, talking about like the kind of sort of plans around him building one, and relating to like that he was, having dinners to try to get in people to help pay for it and all this stuff. But we're really starting to see now, and he's previously revealed um, uh, the ballroom and plans for and stuff, but we're starting to see now that these plans have not only sort of ballooned even more, but that we are now having some major controversy come out over it, because this past week Trump decided to start demolition on the East Wing, and it has really angered um, a lot of people, Democrats and even Republicans and preservatives and everything all alike. So we're going to for starters listen to the most like recent plans, coming from Trump. We're going to look at renders and stuff of the ballroom, and kind of take a moment to go over like the history of construction and renovations that have been made to the White House over the years, and then kind of talk about how those renovations that have been done in the historical precedent of like the processes around having these things done, um, is not quite being followed, um, in Trump's plans. That he is going about this in a different way that is making a lot of people feel concerned, and that the preservation and the idea around changing a federal building, with a historical building like the White House, is kind of disrespectful not only to the White House but to the actual planning process that typically goes about it, in doing these types of changes and renovations. So we're going to do all that in this video. So thank you very. It could be a long video, so I apologize if it is. But thank you very much for joining me. If you are new to Clear Talk, welcome. If you'd like to check out more videos from the channel, please do so. Consider subscribing, like, share, all those good things. And if you'd like to check out videos from my other channels, that would be amazing. JMDPLAY and Puzzling. Consider subscribing to those as well. Any help you do in there, helping with the algorithm, getting videos in front of more people, that would be great. And if you want to give any kind of support, there are links there for support, whether it's ongoing or one-time donations. Any way you want to join the JMD Nation, that would be amazing as well. Any support you give is very much appreciated, so thank you very much. And if you're returning, you're freaking amazing. Thank you very much for coming back over and over and over again, and welcome back to Clear Talk. So, all right, on to the subject at hand. So we have Trump has started talking about a ballroom a few months back, and wanting to start the plans for building a big, beautiful, extravagant ballroom, because he didn't like the current the current way that the White House does events. All right, for years, the White House has done any type of like entertainment event in the East Room of the White House. If you don't know like the full layout, you have the main White House, right? The building, the residential building of the White House. And then you have some colonnades that go out to your two wings, West Wing and the East Wing. The East Room is the easternmost room of the main White House building. That particular room was the largest room in the building, the tallest ceilings, the biggest floor set up, and housed roughly around 200 people. And that's what has been used for years for some, entertainment type of events or stuff like that, whether it be concerts or other types of things. Even funerals have been done there. I think roughly around like 12 or 13 or so of the president's funerals have been done in that room. So there's been a lot of history that's been put into that room. And so, but whenever there was any type of event that was needed that would need to house more than 200 people, the White House would put up a tent, and set up a tent area for an event. Now, this is just not some plain ass little, TP tent thing. These would be some extravagant tents, that would have flooring and stage and it was, these were pretty major tents. But and they could be, erected up for the event and then taken down, and it wouldn't affect any kind of major construction or anything major like that for the historical presence of the White House. So, and this is the way that they've been doing it for years. Now, apparently, all the way back in 2010, Trump is initially put forth plans to build a ballroom. Back in the Obama administration, he requested their administration to build a ballroom, and he was even going to pay for it. And he has done that multiple times over the years, apparently, because he felt that the tent setup was an eyesore, and that the White House needed to have a big building that could house big events. And he would always kind of reflect that from his Mar-a-Lago ballroom, stating, see, look, I've got a big ass ballroom that holds a lot of people at my Mar-a-Lago estate, and so this is, and you should do something like that at the White House so that we can house and have huge big events there. That would be great. Well, apparently that kind of got squashed over the years, okay, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I assume it never was agreed on. And there is a process that you're supposed to go, or rather is kind of respected to go through, and we'll go over the details of that. To have something like that done, to have any type of construction or reconstruction done on the White House, or any federal building for that matter. Although technically, the White House, the Capitol, and the Congress chambers do not have, are kind of exempt from mandatory review for any type of construction. But historical precedent, was that any kind of plans for some type of construction would be put through these committees and this process out of respect for the historical sort of preservatory, of the building. So anyways, we will go through all that kind of stuff. But first, we're going to hear from the president himself in yesterday's meeting, press meeting with the Secretary General of NATO, where he was presented with a question about the ballroom. And this is what he said.
Sir, just changing this topic slightly. I see you've got the model of the White House and the ballroom. Many people were surprised the entire East Wing is being demolished, because you had said initially that the ballroom would just touch or would not.
Well, certain areas
are
certain areas are being left. We determined that after really a tremendous amount of study with some of the best architects in the world, we determined that really knocking it down, trying to use a little section. You know, the East Wing was not much. There was not much left from the original. It was over the course of 100 years, it was changed. The columns were removed, and it was a much different building. Then a story was added on in 1948, 1949. There was a story added on, which was not particularly nice. And the building was very, very much changed from what it was originally. It was never thought of as being much. It was a very small building. And rather than allowing that to hurt a very expensive, beautiful building that, frankly, they've been after for years. You have that. I brought these along so people could see, but it's, you know, there's a relative, nobody's actually seen anything quite like it. I think it'll be one of the great ballrooms anywhere in the world. It's about $300 million. It's set to do many, many things, including meetings of foreign leaders, including the honoring of foreign leaders. You can see this. This is a plan. If it's got tables so that you honor a foreign leader, we have a proper space. Right now, we have a space that with tables holds about 79 people. And this is a proper kind of a thing. Now, what the White House was doing, as you know, is they were putting tents out on the lawn. This is an interior shot of the ballroom. I think there'll be nothing like it. And it's being paid for 100% by me and some friends of mine, donors to it. The government's paying absolutely nothing. We're also working with the military on it because they want to make sure everything's perfect. And the military is very much involved in this. They want to make sure everything is absolutely beautiful. You can see the kind of interiors that we're talking about. That's an interior of the ballroom. And it's the highest level. And you see it goes beautifully with the White House. I mean, the mix is beautiful. So over the years, many presidents have made changes. This obviously would be the biggest change, but this was something they've wanted for at least 150 years. Many of you have gone to the events where they had, as an example, President Xi, or they had, you know, a leader of one of the countries, including the king and the queen from your favorite country.
Absolutely.
Frankly. But where they'd be honored, and they'd be in a tent out on the lawn, and it would rain, and it was a disaster. Brian's shaking his head. You know what I'm talking about. And so I thought I'd bring this out because this is going to be probably the finest ballroom ever built, and we're doing it no cost to the country. It's being put in, the money's being put in by me and donors, very great patriots actually, and the spirit on the building of it is amazing. We are using little sections of footings and various other things, but that's sort of irrelevant. In order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure. The way it was shown, it looked like we were touching the White House. We don't touch the White House. That's a bridge, a glass bridge, going from the White House to the ballroom. Then you get into the lobby of the ballroom, and then you go into the magnificent, the main room. And it's something that has gotten incredible reviews.
And you're just quickly following up on that.
All right, so you heard him there. For starters, that they've been wanting this for 100 years. That is such a Trumpian thing to say. No, they have not been wanting this for 100 years. He seems to be the only one who has really wanted this since at least 2010 for 15 years. Maybe I'm probably even before that. But you know, and he has tried, and you know, there's not been one built. There's not been one approved. So I don't know where he gets that people have wanted this for 100 years. But as you see, he showed some pictures, which we'll get a little more close up on those. But the original, when he revealed this back in July, the idea was that, the way he stated it, was that it wasn't going to touch any of the existing buildings, that it would come up close to it, but it wouldn't touch it. And I think it was perceived by everybody that included like the entirety of the East Wing. That the ballroom would be built as an extension to the East Wing, and that to make it its total like size. But apparently, that was not actually what he meant. It seems now, with the most recent things that have been revealed about the plans, is that he actually meant that the main White House would not be touched. That construction would come up to the White House, but would not touch the White House, which appears to include the entirety of the East Wing and the East Colonnade, which the East Colonnade itself features some, quite significant stuff, rooms in it, including the family theater, and stuff like that. So all of this is going to be changed in some kind of way, form, or fashion, including the East Wing. Now, the East Wing is currently kind of like it's the visitor center to some degree, partially for visitors coming to the White House. They come through the East Wing, and are brought from the East Wing through the colonnade to the actual White House in like tours and stuff like that. Who else is also in the East Wing is the First Lady. The First Lady's office is in that wing, along with what staff she may have. And like I said, all the social and event planning personnel and all that kind of stuff is all in the East Wing. So one immediate question that I like, and it's stated that all of these people are being temporarily moved to another location. So, and my question, and right off the bat, is okay. Well, after all of this construction is done, and this ballroom is built, like this building is arguably being built to be the ballroom. Like that seems like that's the point. It doesn't feel like it's going to have office type of space anymore. So that means to me, all of the personnel that currently are located in the East Wing would have to be relocated permanently somewhere else. So that's one thing that I don't think is even right at the moment being questioned, or it certainly hasn't been revealed how that's going to work out. But the other thing about the East Wing is that it covers a bunker that's up underneath the East Wing for the president and for like major security concerned times where they can need to go down into the bunker as a secure area for whatever kind of event or situation or whatever is going on. There's a bunker up underneath the East Wing, and that was one of the initial reasons for Franklin D. Roosevelt building the what is currently known as the East Wing. I mean, its original construction was back with his and with Theodore Roosevelt in 1901, but then Franklin made changes and kind of built onto it to when he constructed the bunker. He had the bunker built, and he expanded on what was the East Wing at that time to cover that bunker. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on the East Wing, or what is currently used for. And so now with this addition, we are, and that's the original plan seemingly was that the ballroom would be an addition to the East Wing, but now it's like a complete reconstruction and will be the entire East Wing. And that in itself is, I think, concerning for a lot of people. on top of the fact that this is supposed to be a 90,000 square foot building. 90,000 square foot. And just to put that into perspective, the main White House building itself is only 55,000. Okay? 55,000 square foot for the main house itself. This ballroom is going to be 90. So it's almost twice the size of the main White House. So it takes, the concern is that having this type of lavished building, this type of huge building, beside the main White House is going to visually overtake the White House. That's the idea of the two wings, is that they are smaller than the White House. Like the main visual concept, the idea when you see the White House is to see the White House. And then the wings are just sort of just extra, on there. But now the feeling is going to be that when you look at the White House, you're going to more see this massive ass ballroom for events and entertainment. So we're going to talk about that more, in my opinions on that, towards the end of the video. But one thing I want to do, sorry, at the moment I clicked the wrong button, is first go over some of the pictures and stuff. We'll go, since we are still on the new ballroom at the moment. All right, this is an article here from Newsweek. This was back in August. I'm not really going to go over the details, but I'm going to show the pictures so you get more up close of the pictures. Right quick. That close. Okay. There we go. All right. So this is a picture of what is supposed to be the interior, all right, of the ballroom. This is a rendering picture of what it should look like, or similar to what it should look like. So you have a bunch of golden, accenting around everything. Even the chandeliers, the chairs are golden. Everything's gold, all right, which we've seen has been completely Trumpification of the White House has been to gold everything. We've seen it in the Oval Office. We've seen it in the cabinet room. Everything is being bordered and trimmed in gold plating or whatever. All the picture frames. I mean, even the wall of the presidential walk that we discussed in a video the other day, that has the Biden auto pin instead of Biden's actual face shot or whatever. And which is just completely disrespectful. Everything is being trimmed in gold, which very much, when looking at this, I pulled up Mar-a-Lago pictures and images, and when I looked up the ballroom for Mar-a-Lago, it very much is close when you look at it, because people were comparing the rendering to Mar-a-Lago's ballroom, and where we've got these circular round windows all the way around, the chandeliers, the golden accents. It very much is similar to this. So people were first pointing that out. But as we go on, this is a rendering of the exterior, like the entranceway to what I'm considering he said was talking about the lobby area. Going in here, and this is rendering from the company that's supposed to do the actual construction, McCreary Architects. And then we have, this is like an overview. So we have the main, building, which is what I was talking about, is the 55,000. All right. And we have the the west corridor going out here to the west wing. There's the Oval Office. All right. And then we have the east corridor, which, like I said, houses a couple of things itself, like the family theater and stuff like that. And then here is the current east wing. All right. This is the supposed line for the ballroom. Okay. Which they were including the entire east wing, even in this structural thing here. But they are also apparently going to be doing construction work in additions to the east corridor, like like an added upper level walkway to the ballroom, I think, or something like that. It's supposed to be included across here. So there's going to be construction done to this entire section throughout the entire thing. You have the Kennedy Garden here. This is the Rose Garden, which has now been completely paved over by Trump. And so, yeah, this is going to be the supposed bordering for the ballroom. This is another artistic rendering. So this would be the White House, and this is and you see that what I find interesting is the way that they do this rendering in the angle. They still make the White House look like it's bigger because they're rendering this to be in the distance. So that's for me interesting that they would do that. But then when you look at it more in this rendering, you go, oh, wow, that really is kind of big. And I'm not even quite sure that this rendering really displays how big this is going to be. But here's just, like I said, this is a artistic rendering. Here's another angle. So this is the White House, like the main White House. This is the ballroom, the East Wing, which, like I said, this, I guess, is supposed to be the main entrance and lobby area, and then going back into the main ballroom. Now, as you see here, this is like 2-story in this section. Now, is the idea that the second story will still be holding the, offices and stuff that the current East Wing, uses? I don't know. I mean, there hasn't been any definitive plan released on that as far as I can tell. But I mean, it's possible, I suppose, that the First Lady's office and all the social, and event planning's offices and things will be on the second floor, perhaps. I have no clue. But this is like I said, a rendering here showing you just how big this building is going to be. And here's another look rendering from the corridor overlooking here. So that's not the East Wing, so I don't know. It's a view from the East Wing. Okay, all right. So now, so you kind of get the idea of what the rendering and stuff is supposed to, is claiming it's going to look like. You see the inside of the building, from what is being said. Now, what is the history for construction being done? Or actually, we'll go on. Let's not do the history yet. Here we are. The East Wing, this is from NPR. The East Wing could fully be demolished soon as preservationists urge caution. The entire east wing of the White House can be fully demolished as soon as this weekend. A White House official not authorized to speak on the record tells NPR of the building of 90,000 square foot ballroom. Although Trump initially said the project wouldn't interfere with current building, it would never, it would be near it but not touch it. On Wednesday, yesterday, in order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure. And he even made the comment in there that it was it was going to be, it just wasn't going to, or some act like it was going to be, it wasn't going to work for the big beautiful building that they planned. So the current state, it wasn't going to match, or it would, for him, would be an eyesore if they were to just add on. It wouldn't flow, in his opinion, I guess you could say. So they have to tear it down. They have to completely redo it. The East Wing demolition of the White House is going directly up to the edge of the residence and includes tearing down the East Garden Room, Family Theater, and East Colonnade, as well as the complex of offices. The sight of excavators tearing into the East Wing set off alarms among preservationists. My bad. But the White House is doubling down, insisting demolition is necessary. The plans change, and the president heard counsel from the architects and the construction companies who said that in order for this East Wing to be modern and beautiful for many, many years to come, it has to be truly strong and stable structure. This phase one that we're now in was necessary. This is from Karen Levitt. The president wants to do right by the people's house. The office and other facilities that were in the East Wing will be rebuilt and modernized, said Levitt. There will also be security enhancements and involve the underground bunker built under the East Wing during World War II, known as the President's Emergency Operations Center. The East Wing will be more beautiful and modern than ever before. And in addition, there will be big, beautiful ballroom that will hold big parties and state visits for generations to come. And the state, going back to as early as 2010, Trump has complained that the White House doesn't have an appropriate space for state dinners and other large gatherings, and didn't like the large tents that were put on the South Lawn. When it was first announced over the summer, White House said that it would cost around $200 million. The cost is now ballooned and is described to be around $300 million now, but being paid for by Trump and private donors. In a letter earlier this week, the National Trust for Prehistoric Preservation called on the Trump administration to pause demolition until the ballroom plans go through. The legal required public review process, which includes input and approval from the National Capital Planning Commission, or the NCPC. We are deeply concerned that the massing and height of the proposed new construction will overwhelm the White House itself. It is 55,000 square foot and may also permanently disrupt the carefully balanced classical design of the White House with its two smaller and lower east and west wings. In a social media post by Stephen Chung, White House Director of Communications, the National Trust of Prehistoric Preservation is run by a bunch of loser Democrats and liberal donors who are playing political games. A fact sheet released by the White House slammed criticism as manufactured outrage by unhinged leftists and their fake news allies, who are clutching their pearls over Donald Trump's visionary addition of a grand, privately funded ballroom to the White House. The White House Historical Association said it created a historical record of the West Wing prior to the demolition through digital scans and photographs. The East Wing and gardens have been captured in detail for the benefit of our nation, and historic artifacts from the East Wing have been preserved and stored. So basically what they're saying is that the White House Historical Association took pictures and digital renderings, scans, whatnot, of the existing buildings for historical record and artifact so that we can remember it in the future for what it was and now what is being destroyed and putting up something else. But the White House has not yet submitted constructional plans to the National Capital Planning Commission, the agency tasked for approving major renovations and construction projects on federal grounds in Washington, D.C. The White House officials said that they do not have timeline for submitting the plans, but do intend to seek approval before the construction phase begins. Will Scharf, a top Trump aide, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, and chair of the commission, said during a public commission meeting in September that the commission doesn't have jurisdiction over demolition. Therefore, it did not need to approve Trump's plan for tearing down the East Wing to make way for the ballroom. Any assertion that this commission should have been consulted earlier than it has been, or that it will be simply false and represents a misunderstanding of this commission's role in the project. When we are submitting a plan, we will review that plan. The commission is currently closed due to the government shutdown, and their October meeting has been canceled. So you have to understand this. What happens typically? The NCPC, along with a couple of other like committees, agencies, like the National Parks Services and something, the National something of Arts or whatever. They all have this. They are the planning committee, or they are the committees where any kind of plans for any kind of federal construction or whatever to be done to any kind of federal properties, it's just supposed to go through them according to a section 107 or whatever thing of some kind of agreement. I can't remember what the agreement is, but anyways, but there is an exemption in section 106 of that same documentation, whatever agreement ruling, that the White House, like I said before, the White House, the Capitol, and the Congress building does not have to technically, legally, the argument is that they don't have to go through it. That they are exempt. Like there is no requirement for it to go through. But all previous kind of changes that were been done to the White House grounds or anything, has been presented through the NCPC for review because of the historical, nature of the premises and the respect for, a lot of people being brought into the plans to make sure that what plans are being presented are, through as far as like safety and like holding up the historical, preservation of the current buildings, the status of them, and like all these different things, or if there could be alternate plans or alternate, ways about doing it, can need to be considered, so that there's multiple people putting in, even public, putting in opinions on how something should be constructed when it comes to the White House or any of the other buildings. It's been respectfully done anyways, even though there isn't a requirement for the White House. Previous presidents have respectfully went through this NCPC anyways. The approval process is usually a few months because they, to get all the members and people that, they get opinion from, including the public, to approve any kind of construction. And that is the one thing that Trump has not done. Now, what is being argued, though, by the White House is that the agreement, or the, statute of the NCPC, is that they are over construction and design, but not demolition. because it doesn't directly state demolition, which I'm assuming the idea was probably that was included in construction, like a part of a construction is also demolition. But because it doesn't specifically state demolition in their services for the White House agreement, or how the process that you normally go through, that the White House could go through with demolition without the approval of the NCPC. And so therefore, the only thing that they would have to consider, or they could consider, is the actual construction plans, which they still have yet to actually give to the NCPC for approval. And so it comes off and looks like going ahead and doing demolition, destroying a part of the East Wing without any kind of approval. Also, the timing of this being done while the government is shut down, which means the NCPC is also shut down, and meetings for any kind of planning to be done around this construction is shut down and canceled. The timing here is, suspicious, and kind of on par for them to do whatever they want. And then whenever the government or some type of meeting can be established for approval of a construction process, that then the NCPC would be left with having to decide whether they disapprove of the plans, and then have to come up with a plan of approval, and all the while leaving this eyesore of a demoed East Wing of the White House and the eyesore that brings, or going ahead and accepting the plans for the construction so that you don't have the White House just being left in a demoed state for however long it would take to approve plans that they would approve. I think it's strategic. I think it's basically a slimy way from the White House to use the particular time to try to force the hand of the plans, and it be done anyway. Like there would be no opposition, effectively, because then you would be left with the argument of leaving, like I said, an eyesore of a demoed East Wing. So that's what I think's going on there. The former chair of the commission for 9 years, appointed by Preston Bryant by then Barack Obama and Trump during his first term, doesn't agree with Scharf's assertion over jurisdiction. In the email to NPR, Bryant said the commission's review and approve processes include the entire project design. In that process, what's demolished would be part of the project plan to be reviewed and approved. What's demolished is inherent in the design. Site preparation also is inherent in the design. So he's arguing that clearly demolition would be a part of design and construction, but the White House is making their little nuanced arguments like their little Weasley arguments of, well, you didn't state this specifically, so sorry, not sorry. Yeah, the ballroom is hefty price tag attached to it, which Trump, on Wednesday announced will cost around $300 million. The White House, but he's claimed that he's, himself and private donors are paying for it. The White House official has said the project has secured $200 million in donations so far, which was provided in a list of donors to NPR, and the donor list, which they includes Amazon, Google, Meta, and Lockheed Martin. which they go on to state here that even Amazon and Google does finance NPR, and Amazon pays for distribution of some of their content. So even NPR is paid and bought to some degree by Amazon and Google. But these are just a small list of the donors of NPR, of donors that are paying for this. And that's the other question at hand here, is the idea around an argument around privately paying for privately paying for the ballroom, and it being cheered by Republicans and by his Trump supporters that, oh, see, look, he's doing this big, beautiful thing, and we're not even gonna have to pay for it. He's gonna pay for it, or he's gonna have donors that pay for it. And see, that's always the thing that you should be concerned with, is when you have billionaire, millionaire, billionaire corporations, and big money interest paying for something in Washington. We always talk about this, the corruption of politicians in policy, because they are giving funding and campaign contributions and other stuff in order to, as a handout, to be like, hey, all right, I'm giving you some money, and then when I come back and need something, you owe me. And that's the same kind of sentiment you get here. Is that these companies are putting up money for this building, and then there's what expectations are going to be had after the fact, from not only Trump but anybody else that is a part of the White House in the future, and events that are held there, who's invited, or anything else that they want to push forward. That's the concern. So now, I know this is 45 minutes. I told you it was going to probably be a long video. All right, we're going to go over quickly about the history. All right, how presidents have changed the White House and how Trump's ballroom is different. Crews are demolishing the East Wing. We know that. We're going to skip over all of that. All right. The White House has undergone renovations, both large and small, since its creation in 1792. But this would be the biggest addition in scope and size since the 1940s. In the list that was issued yesterday, if you look at it closely, all the changes after 1942 have been limited to the interior, and the ones on the exterior either involve simple restoration or minor site additions like the tennis court and the pavilion, which are limited by their scope, size, and visibility to have any negative impact on the historical building itself. Here's a look at how the presidents have changed the White House. All right, this is in 1812. The original White House was built in 1792. Then it was, and it will state this, then it was called the President's House, or it's something else. The cornerstone for the White House was laid in the newly designed National's Capitol in October 1792, a year after George Washington selected the site himself. The neoclassical building was designed by Irish-born architect James Hoban, and constructed by a team of enslaved and freed Black Americans and European immigrants over the course of 8 years. Adams and his wife Abigail were the first to inhabit the residence, which was still unfinished by the time they moved in the 1800s. I mean, towards the end of his term in November 1800. Thomas Jefferson moved in the following year and went to decorate the presidential house with furnishings he had inherited from all presidential predecessors. But also, it was lost in 1814. But almost all of it was lost in 1814 when the British troops set fire to the building during the War of 1812. James Madison and the First Lady Madison both fled Washington to safety and later managed to bring a full-size portrait of the former President George Washington with her. Both returned to a temporary residence and finished out his presidency. Hoban oversaw the rebuilding of the White House, its second incarnation, which closely resembled the first, officially reopened with James Monroe's arrival in 1817. Monroe later tasked Hoban with the building's the first major addition, which was the South Portico, which is this section here. This entire section here. The rounded and stairs, all that. The iconic rounded entrance lined with iconic columns was completed in 1824. Construction of the North Portico was completed in 1830 under Andrew Jackson. The next big changes happened under Theodore Roosevelt. In 1901, he renamed it the White House in a formal communications, making its longtime nickname official. It was originally called the President's House or the Executive Mansion, but most people started referring to it by its limestone whitewash coloring in the early 1800s. In 1902, Roosevelt began a major renovation of the physical building that transformed it from a crazy quilt of alterations over time into a cohesive statement of modern times. The biggest change was the relocation of his office from the second floor to the West Wing, originally called the Executive Office Building. The separate one-story structure was accessible by walkway and housed the offices of the presidential staff and secretaries, as well as the cabinet meeting room. The project expanded the first family's living quarters, necessary since the Roosevelts had 6 young kids, and modernized the building's heating and plumbing. It also created the East Terrace, which was the original entryway for the guests, which later became the East Wing. Subsequent presidents continued to build onto Roosevelt's renovations. William Taft remodeled and expanded the West Wing in 1909 to create the Oval Office. President Calvin Coolidge had the roof rebuilt and a third floor added in 27. After an engineering reported showing that the roof trusses were weakened and unsafe, the West Wing was remodeled in 29 after a 29 fire and further expanded in 34 by FDR, relocating the Oval Office to its current location for more privacy. Built more offices underground and installed an indoor swimming pool for his polio therapy. All right. FDR also had the East Wing created in 42, primarily to cover up an underground bunker and to house more staff and offices during the war. According to the White House Historical Association, the wartime construction of the East Wing was highly controversial. Republicans criticized it as wasteful and accused Roosevelt of using the project to bolster his presidency's image. The secretive nature of the construction tied to military purposes further fueled suspicions. However, the East Wing's utility in supporting the modern presidency eventually quieted the critics. The next major renovation, perhaps the biggest one, was under Truman in the 40s. In response to constructural deficiencies, his architects decided to gut the entire interior, leaving only exterior walls intact. Between 48 and 52, the project cost equivalent of $60 million, funded and authorized by Congress, and drew internal scrutiny from preservationists and the public. One of the most controversial changes was the addition of a balcony to the second floor of the South Portico, which is this right here. They added this balcony. While opposition by some architectural purists and Truman's opponents in Congress for both aesthetic and financial reasons, the Truman balcony has become a hallmark for both first family leisure and official White House events. The Truman balcony was something that was really controversial at the time, but now it's one of the most beloved parts of the White House for the president and their family to be sitting around looking out at the southern lawn. Truman's funded the balcony himself using money from his allocated household account. Brower said Trump's ballroom is the biggest renovation since then, but it is different in key ways. So Truman wasn't going to take no for an answer, but he did go through the channels to get approval for his renovations, and we're not seeing President Trump do that, do the same thing. Um, Recent decades have been frequently but relatively minor changes to the White House grounds. Kennedy created the modern Rose Garden in '63, and it was remained relatively unchanged until August when Trump paved over it. In 1970, Nixon converted the indoor swimming pool that was that was done by FDR for his therapy stuff into the White House press room and installed a one-lane bowling alley, while President Ford had a swimming pool, also privately funded, built outdoors. In the early 2000s, Bush modernized the press briefing room and situation room and installed the first ever solar electrical system on the White House grounds. Jimmy Carter installed a solar heating panels on the roof, the White House roof in '79, but they were moved in '80. Barack Obama adapted a tennis court so that it could be used for basketball, and the First Lady Michelle Obama, planted the White House kitchen garden on the South Lawn. This, of course, this is the Rose Garden where Trump has paved over now completely. Trump himself made a slew of renovations since his second term. He also bedecked the Oval Office with gilded frames and golden details. The Presidential Walk of Fame, which we've talked about, where he put up the instead of the headshot, he put the auto pen shit, whatever. The White House also says Trump is carrying on a proud presidential legacy of making upgrades to the building, in this case, increasing his capacity to host major functions. Breyer, the author, says there is a case to be made for expanding the entertainment space of the White House with caveats. I don't think that it has to be this size and scope. 2 football fields big and larger than the White House itself. And I think that, in closing, is kind of the whole schnick of this, the whole issue and controversy around this, is that while there can be some sentiment that the space that the East Room has been used for entertainment and stuff is probably in the present day small, and there could be a better suited, larger space for entertainment purposes. But to build a 90,000 square foot massive ass ballroom, bigger than the actual White House itself, for me, does a few things. For starters, it makes it when you think of the White House, like you want to look at it as the main building. I mean, this is our governing building. This is our executive building. This is where the arguably the most powerful person in the world resides. And this is about governing, about doing the will of the people, and exercising the rights for our country and our safety and security and all these things, right? And for me the idea is it should be looking at the main building, and that's what it represents. But when you look at the property, and you're instead going to see, I would argue, after this is built, a ballroom. Like, that's going to be the biggest thing that you see on the property. And so it's already kind of a weird thing to think that, like, entertainment events are had at the White House, but I think that's the reason why they've always been kept relatively small and minimal. But to have the biggest building on the grounds be the entertainment building, like that to me sends the wrong message for what the White House should represent. That's one thing. It sends a message of, oh, you're more concerned with entertainment, with having extravagant dinners and ballrooms, dances, or to bring in the wealthy elites, or other national presidents or prime ministers, or whatever elites as well. Or, I mean, and entertain them rather than the idea around the executive, like, business policies, safety, security, insurance of our country. It, to me, places the image of the White House in the completely wrong way. And that's one thing. And then secondly, this for me, and Trump specifically, makes it look like he's trying to put a stamp as, not only am I going to build a building, not only am I going to, I'm going to add my name to the list of people, list of presidents who have made renovations, have made structural changes, and not only am I going to build something to the White House, not only am I going to make an addition to the White House, but I'm going to make such a massive ass big addition to the White House that it's going to be bigger than the White House. Like, when you look at the White House, you're going to see, yes, the White House, but then you're going to see the Trump ballroom that is almost twice the size of the White House. And I think that's just another way of him trying to make himself bigger than even the legacy and the tradition and the just image of the White House itself. That now, going forward, you will see the White House as a ballroom, and it will be the Trump ballroom. That for me feels like is another big point. And I just think that is kind of grotesque. Like, he could have made a ballroom. He could have built on to the East Wing, or whatever, any section he could have built on something to make a room, say a room that was big enough to house twice what the East Room could. I could say that, 500 people. An addition that would add about, I don't know, maybe 20,000 square foot would probably have been enough. And would not have superseded, like, or made the, it would not have created this image where you're trying to seemingly just bury the White House and make it look small and minuscule. Like, and it would have been enough, saying, oh, I've doubled the size of our entertainment room. So now, instead of just 200 people, we can house, 400, 500, whatever. And that would have been enough. But you've went to the extent of making a huge ass building, presenting the plans for a huge building that you now say is upwards of 999 people, 1,000 people. Why would you need to host an event for 1,000 people? Why at the White House? Why would you want 1,000 people at the White House in a building like that? Like, that to me is just, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then not only that, but the plans, the current plans. I'm so sorry. I guess feel like there's something stuck in my throat. The current plans go through January of 2029, the month in which the new a new administration should be coming in. Now, he says that he wants this done way before then, but the current plans seem to place it at finishing in January 2029. And if that is the case, then now you're looking at the fact that he would be cutting the ribbon on a building that he is placed here, and yet, the idea is that he's not going to be in a third term. I mean, that's legally should not be a third term, even though he humors it, jokes about it, talks about it all the time. We're looking at it, we're seeing, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to cut the tape just for the next administration to come in and enjoy it? It just feels like with all the additions that he's making, all the changes he's making, all these gold platings and everything, and making it look, like I've said before, Mar-a-Lagoed, making it look like his own home or reminiscent of his own home in Florida, as if this is his new home, as if he hasn't planned to leave. He plans to be here for a while. And I know, here you go again, talking about him not leaving. He isn't going to get a third term. Blah, 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 blah. Stop being stupid. But he is stamping his stamp on the entire White House in a way that, and the constant rhetoric of, third term this, third term that, his followers, Trump 2028, Trump 2028. He's got merchandise of it. We've talked about this before. It seems like he's just adding on to the idea that he's not going anywhere. Or even if he does, he's still there. In the biggest way possible. In a bigger way than any other president before him. This is a part of him, as he's been trying to argue here lately, him being the biggest, best president ever. That him being even bigger than and better and more important than Washington and Lincoln themselves. That right now, maybe he's not considered it, but we're working on it. And that is the problem. That is the bigger issue here. Now, yes, the traditional process is, it seems like they're trying to skirt around it, trying to get things approved without getting them approved, or trying to just start things without getting any kind of approval, without the respect of the, even the public. This is supposed to be the public's house. And yet it seems like he doesn't care about even getting the approval of the public themselves. Now, again, previous presidents have done things that were scrutinized and, people didn't agree with, but at least they went through the channels that you could at least make a respectful argument for. Going through Congress, going through the NCPC once it was developed to have this greater, more democratic design for things being changed to the White House or other federal buildings for that matter. But Trump is going about this in a way that feels scummy, grotesque, disrespectful. That he's just making these changes on his own, doesn't care what or who and how anybody thinks about it. Just demolishing without even any kind of approval or like process of even like gesture for approval. To destroy a historical building, a building that has been a part of the White House grounds for 100 years, over 100 years. I don't know. You tell me, what do you think? What do you think? Am I just making a big thing out of nothing? Does it not matter? Is it more important to have a big ass ballroom for entertainment that's bigger than even the White House itself? Is that more important? Or would it be more important that our priorities when it comes to the White House should be more about, I don't know, governance? Maybe? Executive decisions for our country? I'm just saying. Let me know what you think. And until next time, it's been Clear Talk. Peace. I'm out.